I'd like to call the Monday, March 18th, 2024 meeting of the Newcastle Environmental Review Board to order. Present today are Ivan Alter and David Horowitz and Ted Holmes, and welcome to our new member, Corey
Sika. Don't be alarmed.
Sika.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of nouns, a lot of vowels.
That's all right. We're very happy to have you. Welcome. First order of business, approve the minutes from the last meeting. Does anybody have any comments on the minutes from the February 26th?
So they weren't ready in time.
Yeah,
So those
okay.
haven't been
So
signed.
not too many comments.
I did not
Exactly.
see any minutes.
Yep.
Go on record.
So we'll put those for the next meeting. That's fine, along with
Excellent.
this meeting. Thank you.
All right, so then we can move right to our first application. The first returning application is 20 Kerry Lane for a wetlands permit. Okay, Dennis, you want to catch us up?
I think I'll maybe have the applicant catch up, because there's been some developments and I want them to sort of summarize and disclose whatever they're sort of looking to advance at this point.
Terrific. Who's here for the applicant?
Annie Menace is here from Garrison Foundry, and we also have Michael Campbell on tonight as well. And our client is on to represent tonight. Yes, good to see you again. So,
You too.
yeah, and welcome to Corey. As you know, we're here to discuss our project, 20 Kerry Lane. Thanks to Dennis, we did want to update you on some new information and some development that's been going on in the project. It's ongoing. We met with Dennis today, actually, and had which I think was a pretty productive meeting. Largely,
but it's just water flavor.
Largely, and Michael just hopped on, but largely we're here to talk about our project. Let me,
Right.
hold on.
That made more sense because I can't imagine water flavor itself.
Sorry,
Somebody mute?
Michael,
okay,
Michael, you got to mute.
sorry.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yes, well, we're here to introduce this project again, and if you mind, I'll share my screen and we can talk about what we're here to talk about today, and then Michael can hop on too. But we did resubmit our plans. As you know, you're looking at our new plans where we updated from our last meeting. Just to update us as far as where we landed last meeting, we largely, I believe, were in agreement that the plans that we had and the wetlands mitigation that we had met the standards, and we were waiting on Michael Campbell, and he also submitted for this meeting. So we do have all of that information present and we can discuss it. There have been some developments, as I mentioned. Dennis had been in the neighborhood on a different job, and he had passed our site and noticed a possible vernal frog area. And so we have gone into investigating that, and we had James McManus from JMM Wetlands come out, and we have determined, as Dennis believed, that there's a small section of the plan that right here, if we're looking at the survey, it's almost like as Dennis described it, the tip of a carrot, but it's a very small area here that it has a bit of wetland. And I can show you the picture that Dennis sent too, but we did have someone come out and determine that this is an area of wetland. We're showing the picture, sorry. Here, where this is their property line, basically it's a tiny little bit of area, but we do believe this is wetland. So we're going through and we're going to be flagging this for the project to complete our application.
Do you mind just putting that picture back up just so I could?
Sure.
I'll try to orient them
Yeah.
based on the plan.
Yep. Sorry, 1 second.
No, it's okay. That's okay. And to be fair, the person they had come to delineate this was yesterday, and he's Irish, so it has to be right. So,
Yeah, very knowledgeable.
so, and I'm just getting up, pointing to the elements of the photo. So, this is the existing house. So you're basically looking at the back of the garage here, right? And so when you move up to the corner of this property, I mean, you sort of, you know, I had noticed this, I would say, at other times, this area, which I thought I walked it earlier today. There's a fair amount of leaf litter, but when you step on that, I mean, you just go right down. I mean, this is like the softest, muckiest, and then it just so happens you could see some of the standing water there to the other side. It was quiet today, but that was like, as I called it, the Wood Frog Mount Airy Lodge. I mean, there was just so much activity going on there. So I said, I'm not saying this is a vernal pool. I don't think it is. I don't think it holds the water, but I said it's all part of one system. And I think it encroaches onto the property. And then if that's the case, it may change the
Looks-
garage discussion. That's,
Who did
It looks-
the
it-
original?
um,
The original boundary is, you can see it right here.
No, who was
who
the
did
person that flagged the original?
the original one, his name was Otto Theol. I know I had spoken with, the owner, Mr. Racklin, about, the line. And I said, can I just I'm just curious to get a copy of his report, right? Just to, justify that line. And, to be fair to him, it's possible, because I don't think that wetland is necessarily tied to this. It was just another spot on the property. And that's why I wanted to see the report, because what month did he do it? When did he do it? It's possible that it was just
I mean-
missed. That's all. And it's not,
Correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis, but it's most of this is on the neighbor's property. But like we said, it's the tip of a carrot. I mean, who knows when we actually flag this thing? But it
Right,
is
that-
a
and
Even if it
very
was on the
tiny
neighbor's property,
little
it would be-
tip.
Yeah, you think you would have seen it if
It would create a buffer problem.
Yeah.
Am I correct that, in just kind of estimating that would then place pretty much the rest of the property in the buffer as well?
yeah, and the garage, which is part of the proposal, right? So that was.
Well,
the-
just,
the point.
yes, and per our earlier discussion with James McManus, is that there's two things going on with our development as well. This is why we're having this meeting tonight to discuss it, because we want to show our due diligence, and that we've been, focused on trying to get everyone on the same page as far as this renovation. And so we want to flag this area. We do all agree that it's wetlands. One thing that James McManus has what we talked about with Dennis today, and they had very intelligent, detailed discussions about soils and stuff. But he does not believe that the original wetlands determination is correct. So this was done by Otto Thiel, a different wetlands delineator, and he believes that this is an incorrect line. So not only will James flag this area, but he wants to come out and redelineate this area. He believes that this is not the correct wetlands line. Dennis, you could speak a little bit more intelligently about this, but what he believes is that this is a man-made pond, and when it was made, it was dredged out, as was this area, and then they put down a little bit of fill and soil on top of the new dredged out area, and this area is wet because of the runoff from the house, and there's pipes that aren't working, but this area isn't an active wetlands environment. It doesn't grow skunk cabbage, it's not his belief. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis, I'm going off here in an area I'm not an expert in, but that's what you guys were discussing today and that's to be determined. We don't know. So that's part of the process of both of these areas, is that we're looking at this area, but we have an expert, very knowledgeable fellow who really wants to come out and look at this area as well.
I don't see a problem with them getting it reflagged.
No, I mean, as I said to him, what he's looking to advance in moment, because that was the first time he proposed it today. The first thing I have to do is go back and read the manual to see, if if his beliefs, if they do or do not change, what the outcome or conclusion would be, because I tried to summarize it as, what he admitted that, he wanted to do some more research on, the history of the pond. And I told him, I said, well, just about every pond, in my opinion, that I see in Newcastle is man-made at some point. I said, the configurations are not natural. They happen to be within riverine or, wetland systems. You're not gonna go dig out a pond in a dry area and then feed it water through a
Right.
hose. I mean, they were features that people wanted. They wanted open water. But what he was trying to, I think, say was that the features in those soils, in the area outside of the pond, although they may be hydric features, they are relics of when they were submerged as sediments in the pond, but not necessarily indicative of hydric soils now. So I
Can you
just,
say that again?
right, I mean, I myself in my experience hadn't,
Does it matter?
that's why I want to take a look at the manual.
Yeah.
That's why I want to see when we meet out there, what exactly he's looking to advance. And then if that would or would not change those conclusions at the end of the day, because I didn't have an immediate response to it, because I didn't investigate the area. I hadn't seen it. So that,
Well, he wants to present next month to all of you. But the only reason why, just from on a pipe down, but from an architectural / engineering, and Michael Campbell can speak to this, is that we were planning on talking about our engineering from Michael Campbell today, because that is what was missing from our application last time. But this is a discussion, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis, does it move the needle 100%? No. But does it potentially give us a little bit more flexibility as far as where to put these rain gardens? If the wetlands delineation line is slightly different, do we potentially have some other opportunities? Because from the client perspective, putting 2 big rain gardens in the middle of one of their only useful areas of lawn isn't very attractive, right? So if there is any potential other areas.
hold on, and to take a step back again, I believe what you're, and this is fine, I just want to corral this. What is up on the screen now was not submitted. Did you guys get a look at this? Was this
This is
submitted? I'm trying to remember. It is,
It's in
okay,
the
so I did get it, okay. So
I think
this reflects sort of a second edition. The first edition, as you saw, I think showed 1 rain garden to the side of the house and 1 rain garden to the rear of the house. But
Yeah.
the problem that I was going to have with the rain garden to the rear was that, although the basin part could potentially be sited out of the wetland boundary as it is depicted now by Otto, the grading and I guess the little spillway for the overflow was all going to be disturbance in the wetland. And since stormwater is
Defeats
a
the-
pollution control device, you're really not supposed to have any of it in the wetland. So then this sort of became that, I'm sorry, she's showing the first one, the
Oh, yeah, I have
secondary
to both on the
submission.
screen. This one is the second one.
No,
This
that's
is-
fine. And then the second one took that rain garden out and then in essence put the 2 side by side to the side of the property out of the wetland limits as delineated by Otto.
Is it even worth looking at any of this if the wetland
I mean-
delineation is up for grabs? I mean,
Mike Campbell is
Yeah.
on. Mike Campbell, if you want to say anything
Well-
to the effect, but
I think the one thing that I thought might be of value is, I know at the first meeting, there was a discussion about looking to reduce coverage. Not necessarily reducing the project with respect to the living space, right?
Mhm.
It was with respect
Right, it was the decking.
patios, deckings and whatever. My question then at that point was, where does a garage fit into that discussion? You guys had never vetted that, and that was something that I thought, I said to the applicant, if you did come tonight, that may be worthwhile, because now you're proposing for the first time in front of the board, something that is in the wetlands buffer that wasn't prior, based on new information. And how does that impact the discussion? I said, that to me, I think is worthwhile to sort of bring up.
I mean, before we get, yes, I agree, Dennis. I mean, I think just to go back to where we were the last time, again, about moving the needle. Understood that there is this area we want to flag and will on the southwest corner of the property. To go back to this diagram, when we look at this project on a whole, there are projects out there that want to build these huge additions that really want to disturb. it's a project where even with the garage, we are not adding the significant amount of disturbance. You know, we updated this per our last discussion. We included the fire pit. It's still 1,280 square feet, you know, for what it is. We want to do all of this. We want to flag the wetlands. We want to put in a stormwater management plan. We want to put it in an area that's a good spot that everyone agrees upon. But the garage and all of this included is not a lot of square footage, you know, is our feeling, as far as it's open for discussion, but it is something we've already considered as far as a project on a whole, that we have been conscious, and through these meetings we've had since December, we have reduced, and we're being very conscious of what this project is and what this project isn't. You know, it's not this large scale addition project. It's these very minor additions to this house that we're hoping to improve upon. And so, yeah,
So can I
we
ask
wanted to
what
bring up.
consideration you've had for eliminating the impact from the garage now that there's a new wetland delineation? Has that been thought about to present what those options are and what minimization that you're proposing?
I mean, on some level, I think there are quantities limited in the sense of how much we can reduce this project beyond 1,200 square feet.
No,
I
my
think, but
question was the garage. My question was the
Yes.
garage. I
Right,
know
and I
you
agree.
said,
Yeah,
you've said no to most suggestions about minimizing the size of the house. But what about the garage to
well, I think the
mitigate,
garage,
minimize the impact to the
let me just pull up the plan. I think
delineation?
I agree. And what I'm trying to get at is that on some level, a garage has certain parameters because it has to fit the house, it has to fit, oh, sorry.
Car.
If we look at, sorry, just let me pull up the architectural plans. On some level, a garage has parameters because it has to fit a car. You know, so this is our garage that we're talking about. You know, the garage existing is 1 bay. Has 2 bays, and we want to add 1 more bay, and we're copying it from an architectural point of view, and it's just 1 car wide. So as far as reducing the impact of having this 1 car garage, you either have it or you don't. You know, we do have a limit as far as how much we could possibly remove just because it's meant to fit a car. And that's all it is just this small section being added onto the house. So we could reduce it, but it would mean eliminating it.
That is an option to avoid impacting the buffer zone.
I guess, but yeah, I mean, I guess we already have reduced a fair amount from this project, and we want to be conscious of what makes the project doable and feasible, and also from an architectural point of view. If I think that this, we already passed the architectural review board, and, we have let me just pull up our drawings again. Sorry. I think that if we take off, this is what it looks like now. And we don't do the garage as part of this application. I think, I won't speak for the client, but I think there's a level of, we really want to do a small improvement to this house as far as square footage. And this is an important one to have a 3rd bay because they're going to be adding a lot of value and money to this project. And I don't think it's something that is easily taken out because it's an important feature. And I also think in general, the actual square footage that we're adding is not that significant. So, if we look at it, it's a very small amount of disturbance actually for this project.
You get it.
So besides the conversation, what else is up for
Well,
discussion for this?
I think the only thing I'm gonna have to do is, obviously consult at some level, with council, because, you have a wetland delineation here.
That's gonna be.
That generally represents what was
But that could
presented for this
change.
property in
That's-
2018, right? And then this was one delineator has an opinion. There'll be a second delineator that's gonna have another opinion. So what, I know what my role is, but,
Does that changing affect anything that's going on in here?
I think the only thing that it would change is that now the option for one basin to go to the rear of the property and avoid wetlands entirely if indeed, he has to do further investigation, but if Mr. McManus is just looking to pull this right up against basically the water line, then the rear opens up in terms of not being considered wetland.
Isn't this the one we're looking at here?
I don't think that is preferred by the client, so therefore it's worth investigating to see if they could put one of those to the rear of the
Oh.
property.
So there's there's that question, and then there's the garage.
Yeah, and then I think, as far as our mitigation that we presented here, if our clients are very, we want this project to be a success, we want it to be good to the environment, we're happy to do whatever it takes, I guess that's why we're adding, we want to do this due diligence for everyone. And if if there's the potential to add more wetlands mitigation to offset this new area, we would be all for that. And I know James was going to recommend some areas that we could potentially suggest as mitigation areas. And then this, the line delineation it's a to be determined issue. And I guess largely this whole discussion is almost a to be determined issue for next month. But we do need to look at these things, and we want to be diligent, and our clients want to build an offset, however, the board and everyone deems proper and necessary.
Right, and just so that you know, so this, what Mr. Horowitz is saying, this is how it goes in terms of, this is the exercise when it comes to wetlands. All regulatory agencies, the planning board, the ERB, DEC, Corps of Engineers, whatever. The phrase is avoid, minimize, mitigate. So the first option that's always looked at is, does it have to go in the buffer? So, and understandably, and I appreciate, people that are willing to do more mitigation and plant more, and I can understand, because, right, in their minds, it makes sense. You're looking to advance the project and proposal for compensation. And that's third. Minimize is second. Like, you're not really supposed to speak of mitigation until you sort of satisfy the first two. So that's why I had said on the call today, I thought it was important to come, even though some of these were still, the other wetland obviously couldn't be surveyed in time from yesterday, today, and shown on the plan.
Yeah,
And I know that there was the other discussion, but I thought it was important that because the garage was never brought to the table, I didn't necessarily want all this other work advancing if something that the board
Yeah.
said today with respect to the garage with the first
Yeah.
time as being presented in the buffer changes your approach, scope, thinking, so that's why that's being discussed in that fashion at this time. That's all. I just wanted
yeah,
to.
and look, we want to
So-
be here. I mean, we started in December. We're trying to be as diligent and transparent as we can to get, hopefully a beautiful project for everyone, that helps the site as much as we can. And we're smart about where we place systems, but that's why we wanted to come tonight, is that we didn't want to just wait a whole month. We want to discuss it. We're here. We feel that our impact is minimal at 1280 square feet, and we're willing to put in, these rain gardens, and we're willing to offset, and we're looking for guidance. And obviously we're going to have another meeting with a heavy discussion on actual wetland.
Does that
delineation.
include the garage, the number that you just quoted, or does the garage not get
Yeah,
added to
it
that?
includes the garage. It includes everything, includes the decks, includes the garage. I mean, if we think about it, it's deceiving because, you think, here's this big house, but really what we are actually adding and disturbing for this is so small. It's 1280 square feet, You know, it's,
So the mitigation area was, I'm just clarifying, we had it as 1,240 square feet, and that didn't include, I
The fire
thought,
pit.
the proposed garage addition, because that was out of the buffer.
no, it's all here. So basically this diagram shows, you know, what we're trying to also describe is that much of this area is already over disturbed area. You know, so everything in dotted is brand new. So the garage is one area where, you know, it's not over existing. But, and we did update this, it was 1240, but if you recall last meeting, we landed at the end of the meeting where we wanted to add the fire pit back in because we can't count that. So we added it. So this is the total, you know, this is the total square footage when you think
But
about it.
But I'm looking at, I'm just trying to get this straight. I'm looking at the plan from 1/19/24, and it shows kind of the same configuration of the mitigation, and it lists it as 1,240 square feet. And then this submission, which we received, I guess, March 8th, that was stamped, it's the same configuration, and it's 1,240 square feet. So all I'm asking is, like, I'm not, the math's not resonating with me, because it's the same before the garage and after the garage. You know
No,
what I'm
our
saying?
first
Like, that
submission was
number
in
remains-
December, actually. Our first submission was in December, where we,
Right, but this
Initially,
is,
we
but
had
this
it
is the
like
January revision where
2000, yeah,
you
and we
addressed the
didn't have the
reduced
meeting in,
coverage.
right. We didn't have the meeting in February, and then the last meeting, we had the meeting where we discussed the 1240.
So
And
you guys
now
had a mitigation plan that accounted for the garage, even though the garage wasn't in the buffer. That's what
we've
you're
always
saying.
accounted for the garage, yeah, always accounted for the garage as our square footage, yeah. As our total,
And-
you can see it here, we have the numbers like written as far as the, so.
I'm also a little confused by
Cost
the,
difference.
by the removal stats. You're saying that you have 95 square feet of porch with stair being removed and 88 square feet of patios and walkways being removed. And you're showing a total removal of 223 square feet. which
Right.
That doesn't add up to me.
So if you, we're basically describing our diagram here where we have, this is what we removed from the initial application. But it all totals into this amount, whatever the new is. So this is showing you, it's a diagram showing you from where we began. We also reduced, we reduced the pergola, and we removed this, and we also removed this because we initially counted that as part of, if you recall, our first application was like 2,200 square feet, and we were counting areas that were already disturbed. So this is a very precise calculation showing what we actually are disturbing as new disturbance for our construction. And we showed this at the last meeting, we reviewed it at the last meeting, but this is,
If the
It's not on the
garage
table,
wasn't,
though.
yeah, if the garage wasn't in the wetland before, why would it have been included in the disturbance square footage?
because we have it as the total disturbance.
Even though it was outside of the buffer? You were
Yeah,
counting that?
we were counting it.
Yeah, they were.
So
Counting.
could you go back to that other drawing? So the garage is under
House.
A, B, C, D area. It's A?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was always in there.
we always
Okay.
included it. Yeah, and
40, 220, 520, okay. Okay.
yeah, we're trying to show you, I mean, I guess that was the point last time when we spoke, is that, again,
Recording in progress.
showing, you know, trying to demonstrate what the project actually is doing, you know, what it actually is disturbing, because that's what we're here to talk about. And we did include the garage as, even though it wasn't in the wetland, so just a total disturbance number. And when we look at that, you know, it's not a big number. And obviously we did already go through an exercise of reducing it. We understand that there is this new area over here. We understand that we have, and this was of his own volition, the client can correct me. I mean, he came out and he just immediately said he didn't agree with this delineation. And so we are now going to look at that. So we can't make any
followed by pound.
firm decisions on anything, obviously, until we have James McManus and have this discussion about this area. And that will tie in Michael Campbell because he can finally talk about his, his
Elected.
plans. So a lot of things are hinging upon this. And obviously we have this open-ended thing. We still need to flag and mark this new wetlands. We don't even know how big it is. I do think it's quite small, if that matters.
5, 7,
But
1, 8, 9,
Hey, Mike,
0,
can you mute?
0. This meeting ID does not exist. Please re-enter
Mike.
your meeting ID followed by pound.
You forced me to do that.
Mike has problems this afternoon too, he could be
Yeah.
seen. Heard
But
him.
in general, we're here because we also want to be continuing productivity with the process of looking at this project. We started in December. Hopefully we're not going to be here in August. You know what I
Enter
mean?
your participant
And we're
ID
here,
followed by pound. Otherwise, just press pound to continue.
Can we mute him?
Mike, can you mute by any
You
chance?
are
Michael
in the meeting.
Campbell.
There are 6 participants in the meeting. This meeting
Must
is
not
being
hear us.
recorded.
Okay.
Now we can hear. Now, Mike, you have 2 audios going. There we go.
Okay, anyway, I think I've said my piece, and I think we're here
Okay.
to, this is what we're here to discuss. And again, we want to reiterate that we would love to take any suggestions that you might have.
So,
And
all right. I feel like I'm in like a science fiction movie where I'm in a cave. This is nice, in a futuristic society. So the one thing I would say is, I know James McManus, he's a soil scientist, and he mentioned, about having observed this before. For whenever we meet, if he has other examples of where he's done this for clients, whereby areas, I don't even know what to phrase it as because it's new to me, met, relicit hydric characteristics that were from a former situation, and therefore the area now is not functioning as a wetland, soils, to that language. If he has other examples.
his examples.
That would be
Okay,
helpful,
yeah.
if he's done it on other projects. And,
Yeah. I mean,
if
he
he's
came out
ever
really
had
good.
concurrence from the Corps of Engineers on that determination as well.
This might be above my pay grade, Dennis, as far as
'cause-
understanding these, but I get you. I think he came out to look at the corner and he's a really smart, I don't know. I think he seems like this is kind of what he does. Does he have examples? Oh, we'll have to ask him. You know what I mean?
Because he said he encountered it before or he's seen it
Sure.
before, and it would just be helpful to me, because
Okay.
as I said.
Yeah.
I'm not doubting him or denying it, it's just a new concept to me,
Yeah.
based on dredging. I've seen it before, for agricultural wetlands, that's a different dynamic, farmers have
I got you.
manipulated hydrology. This is dredge spoils next to a wetland or in a former wetland, now are not a wetland. So I'm just curious, that's all.
No problem. I'll ask him and I'm going to link you guys anyway. I know you guys are going to be going out there and looking at it together. So, again, our plan is to have all of this information and resurveyed by the next deadline, April 5th, so that we can all discuss this at the next meeting. And we did want to meet tonight to talk about this corner, and we will have it flagged. We don't have it flagged yet. And yes, talk about the project as a whole. That's our belief, is that we do think that the actual disturbance is fairly minimal. But again, we're going to be putting in this stormwater management to offset whatever needs to be happening. And we could add, we have the existing wetlands mitigation. We can, for next meeting, we can present some other mitigation possibilities if you think that would be prudent.
And avoidance. And still avoidance, the step 1. You've
Yeah,
gone to
and-
step,
right.
you've gone to step 3 without going to step 1. So please include that in the conversation next month.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on this application? No?
No, there's a
Okay.
lot in limbo.
All right, so we'll wait and see what comes next meeting. So thank you.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, moving on to the next agenda item, 19 Crow Hill Road, another returning application. Who is here for the applicant?
The applicant himself.
Arriving in person. All right.
How are you? Good, how are you?
Hi.
Am I okay to begin?
Please.
Okay.
Yep.
So based on our last meeting, the board requested that my engineer, myself, do a site plan showing some items consisting of a stormwater mitigation area, a topsoil, a soil stockpile area, silt fence, erosion control, and an egress and ingress area to the rear of the property, where the work's going to be done for that 8-foot rear addition. I made a little larger print if anyone wants to take a look.
Yeah, I forgot to pull my copy of the room, but yeah, I mean, I do remember seeing it, yeah.
Hey Dennis, on the agenda, it has a proposed 4,400 square foot rear addition.
Yeah, we brought that up last time. Yeah. I think we said we're,
And what's the actual size of the addition?
it's 8 feet with a 2-foot cantilever in one of the sections that's kind of highlighted off the back. That's just for like a banquet breakfast area. But I want to say it's probably like 8 feet by 30. So 240,
Yeah,
and then plus
just-
the second story.
Oh, did I botch that again? You're right. Okay. That ain't correct.
So there's two parts to it. There's the additional story and then the bump out. Is that,
Well, it's all gonna be, because the existing house ends here,
Right,
so it's gonna be, the 8 foot by 30 will be a bump out of the kitchen. And then above that will be a bump out of the existing master bedroom and bathroom.
so it's a two-story?
2-story
Got
addition,
it.
correct.
Okay,
And my confusion, I think was from the environmental assessment form, which covered all the disturbance, not the addition proper, so that was my, okay.
Which makes sense, because I think the disturbance was calculated on here to be roughly 3,400 square feet.
Right, okay. Yep.
So that makes sense.
would you mind just walking us through again what the future stormwater mitigation area?
So that's gonna collect, my engineer's still working on the calculations, because I'm also doing a detached garage, which I mentioned last time, that's outside of the wetlands buffer. That's that's on like the horseshoe of the existing driveway there. So whatever he's working on up that now, my engineer, but based on the calculations of that 2-car garage, as well as any new construction, which I want to take the stormwater and put it into a area that's been,
Where's the road here?
the garage is gonna go right here. The square here,
Got
off
it.
this horseshoe,
From that corner?
from that corner.
So it's a retention.
Yeah, I'll put cold tax, again, he's working up the calculations for that, so we did separate this future area for that.
And of the proposed addition, it looks like only like 2/3 of it or something is in the buffer zone, if I'm reading that right. Is that the line of the buffer zone running through it?
That's correct, the long dotted line is the wetlands buffer.
I made it 3/4 on the agenda.
Made it
We're in the
3/4.
same
Oh,
camp. It's not the whole thing, yes, yeah.
Okay.
Remind us, what's there now?
Just a flagstone patio set in stone dust. There was a patio, then a deck, and then a patio, so it's changed over the years.
And that that existing patio is, it looks like about twice the size of what you're doing.
That's correct. And there's actually a note that says that the existing terrace will be removed. That's my plan. I'll just probably, like I mentioned last meeting, I'll probably keep a couple pieces just for a barbecue. For a grill.
So the only thing that needs to be put on here is the drainage, right? That's not,
Yeah, well, once he works up the calculations, it'll be reviewed with Bob Cioli based on the coverage calcs.
Yeah, you require stormwater, right, for the work that you're doing?
I with the garage and the
Yeah, that's what I
partial addition,
thought,
with the
yeah.
addition, yeah, I'll be
Yeah.
over, so that's why we're already set this
Right,
area
Right, okay.
aside. Knowing that I'm gonna have to do it.
Any questions from Dennis? Do you have any questions?
No, I just wanted to make sure that was out of the buffer. That was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Terrific. Any members of the board have any questions?
No.
No. No problem. So pending the sizing and calculations on the Caltech system.
Yeah, the town engineer is gonna review all of that.
Right, so
Yeah.
from our perspective, can we go ahead and vote on this?
I would think so, because your concerns would be, what's gonna happen to the stormwater, and obviously, since he's required to meet chapter 108 with the town.
Right.
Then,
And our concerns should be
yeah, you're
addressed.
gonna be allayed through that. If it's sometimes less than those thresholds and engineering is not required, then it's a fair question to say, well, what's gonna happen to the stormwater, because you're not required from chapter 108A to do that, but you could still talk about certainly the buffer and water quality. Yes.
And you're taking all of the water from the house to,
That's what I'd like to do now, yeah. Only because I don't have anything now. It just runs out to daylight, so,
it's a lot better
yeah, I
than
would,
that, so.
And there's no mitigation required for this?
I think as I mentioned last time, where he's looking to do the addition, it's over a footprint of disturbance that I was able to make out since at least going back to 1990 aerial photos, so that's always been something. If he's looking to remove that and return it to terra firma and, something green, I was happy with that. Since everything kind of slopes down to the stream anyway, I'm like, sure, plus impervious works.
Yeah, so that should be written into
Okay,
the permit,
Yep.
that's
Right,
what,
right, it says existing terrace. to be
Exactly,
removed,
okay.
yeah, right.
and to remain a green
yep,
space.
reduction in developed footprint and go, okay.
Okay. So pending that, do I have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve the plan with a note that the reduced terrace area will become a green space, not to be hardscaped at a later date.
second.
All in favor? Aye. Great,
thank you, gentlemen.
thank you.
Yeah.
Have a
Good
good
luck.
night. Thank you.
All right,
Thanks, Dennis.
okay, man. Get yourself a frozen yogurt on the way out. Thanks, man.
See you guys.
All right.
Okay, so that's all our old business and brings us to our new application, Town of Newcastle. Who is here on behalf of the applicant?
Not me.
Jeff Scally here from Tectonic Engineering, Project Manager.
Hello, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
Good evening, everybody. Let me just jump straight in.
Please, sir.
Let me try to share my screen here. Okay, everybody can see my screen?
Nope.
Yeah, it's on screen.
Yeah, we do.
What screen are you seeing? Are you seeing a map?
The
It's
map,
a
USGS, yeah.
Okay, great. First of all, this is a quick USGS, the small red shape in the middle, that's the project site. A little bit better view from Google components of Google Earth or Street View. This is about 1,200 feet due east of Amarak Road. And here's a little bit aerial view of the same location. And then zoomed in. We took a series of photographs, numbered 1 through 8, and I'll go through those really quickly, just to give you an idea of what the site looks like. Photograph 1 on the top here is looking up at the road from the stream elevation. You can see the erosion on the slope, and this was a direct cause of the storm that was a couple of years ago that created some flooding in the area and erosion down the slope. And the slope's been failing over a long period of time. Second photograph is from the road, looking at the same location. Third photograph is looking down the road. You got the existing swale on the left-hand side, which was damaged under the same storm. And the photo on the bottom here is looking from the road down the slope toward the stream. You can see the existing outlet here and all the erosion coming down here, and then there's a stream down at the bottom here. This is looking up at the erosion on the slope underneath that outfall pipe that crosses the road. And finally, the same swale, and this is the inlet of that pipe along the swale, which runs across the road. I believe that's. Anybody want me to go backwards or spend more time on the photographs describing it? And this is looking.
Good.
This is looking west toward Armorock along that swale. You can see the erosion in the swale, which is part of the storm damage. The town was in there, did some temporary repair work to the road, but it had been a long-standing issue. And again, this is about 150 feet down from the location of the slope failure. Let me zoom in here. And that slope failure is up in this area up in here. And this is the intermittent water course. And this was taken sometime last July, just to give you an idea of what it looks like. This was after a rainstorm, so it doesn't usually run this much, but it definitely does run. And the proposed slope repairs includes basically excavating out the slope and then repairing the slope with a Gabion riprap. And the 4 different colors here, the green area is roadway repair work. So we're going to go in there, fix up the road because the road is sloping and failing down the slope because the slope failure is not supporting the road currently. So there's cracks in the road. So we're going to go and reconstruct the road with the green cross-hatched. The red area shaded in there, that's within the 100-foot buffer, but it's outside the wetlands. And the bluish, purplish area, that's actually wetland impacted areas. Part of the proposal for this project is to pick up the existing crossing culvert with a manhole, run a corrugated metal pipe down a slope, and then use drop manhole, come out with a flatter pipe into a preformed scour hole in this area here. Well, again, all the purplish blue area, that's all within the wetland areas that's defined by our soil scientist and wetland agent. From an impact area, the wetlands impacts in the area that are permitted, which includes the preformed scour hole, slope protection, gabions, temporary sedimentation control, cofferdam, so forth, 595 square feet. The area within the buffer, including the road work, which is within the buffer, and the swale is roughly 34, what do I have? Almost 3,500 square feet. And then finally, we're repairing the swale, basically removing all that rock, reforming the swale with a 1-foot bottom, 2-to-1 side slopes, and then be grouted riprap to create a permanent, stable swale. And that's 1,200 feet, which runs from this inlet almost all the way up to the intersection of Armorock Road. For the slope stabilization, what we're doing is we're excavating the slope down to a consistent elevation, consistent shape, over excavating a little bit, putting a crushed stone blanket and geotech membrane, because there is water seeping out of the face of this hill. There's rock roughly 10 to 15 feet below the ground surface. And then we're lining the small stone with grouted gabion ripraps, basically a box of rocks. And the reason we went with gabions is this, we're proposing a pretty steep slope, 1.2 to 1. And then we're towing this in to account for any potential erosion caused by the stream, because the stream has a bend in the stream right here. So the stream is running along this path here. It takes a bend and it's causing erosion in this area. So that's kind of what we're fixing. Is trying to deal with this erosion at the outside of the bend.
Will
So
you be
we're
rerouting the stream during your work?
we are not proposing to reroute the stream. We are proposing a cofferdam to
Okay.
provide either sandbag or driven piles in this location. I'll zoom in a little bit here. Just to
What-
isolate the work zone from the stream.
If you dam up the stream,
Just bypass it.
you're gonna
The
use-
stream runs
okay.
in and out of this page. There's room on the, let's see, let me show you. Let's see, go back to the plan here.
It'll be parallel, yeah, it's not gonna.
Run, yeah, the copper dam is gonna run parallel.
Okay.
And this triangular shaped line here, this line here, that's the copper dam, and it runs parallel, and the stream runs this direction. Runs here.
That, the big gabion at the toe of the slope, how long does that run?
It runs the whole length of the slope stabilization, which is about 105 feet long.
Just curious, and where does that tie into where the stream changes shape? This-
We are basically, yeah, we're running all the slopes, we're running the stabilization all along here, all along this. We run it here. We tow it in just to make sure that nothing moves down in the future. for
Got
any
it.
Water flowing against that slope, because we know it's coming around this bend. The stream naturally constricts in this area, plus the bend in there cause this slope to erode.
That's where you get the scout.
You know, we analyze this, the big scours in this area, and then we analyze the rest of the slope. We had to extend it to make sure the whole thing stayed stable long-term.
And then those are just precast drops that,
This manhole?
yeah,
Yeah, this is a precast manhole. This one's relatively shallow. Then we chase the slope with a corrugated metal pipe here. Then we use a drop manhole here. This one's quite deep. It's like 20 feet deep to create this pipe outlet to minimize the flow velocity coming out of this pipe.
and silly question, but why corrugated pipe as opposed to DP or plastic?
We looked at concrete, and the issue with the concrete is the velocities get extremely high, so you carry any grits will wear it out. And then plastic pipe, same issues. We were trying to minimize the velocities, and we were trying to lock the pipe into the slope. And then anything like a concrete pipe is smoothing outside, so we'd have to put a big hunk of concrete, keep the pipe from sloping, sliding down the hill over
Right.
one. Where corrugated metal locks into the soil, there's less tendency to do that.
Okay.
Let's see, do I have anything else to share? I can show you cross sections if you want, see? So this is a cross section, this area where we're excavating. And put, and laying the slope back parallel to the existing surface. This area, the TOA slope is very close to the original TOA slope. In this area, it's slightly filled, but up in here, we got some cut. And then, this last one's the most, this is the, showing the manholes, drop inlets and stuff. And then in the pre-formed scour hole. We're using standard DOT, New York State DOT, sedimentation erosion controls. We are proposing to top dress the gabions with topsoil, toss some grass seed on there, establish just so it's green, and then basically let it go wild after that, because it's not a mobile slope.
You better off with those mats than.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
gonna
it's
say,
pretty
if you,
steep.
Yeah, we're
slope.
just gonna filter in topsoil into the box of rocks. Just so
yeah,
we can grow some
that
grass.
would be one for sure, yeah, and either you could seed it, or, I mean, sometimes they sell the mats with the seeds, but yeah, to his point, I think, so I didn't have a chance to speak to Jeff directly, but we've been leaving voicemails, because I know I spoke with town engineer and commissioner of public works here, to try to, as best we can, soften from that. Although the town engineer doesn't like the term bioengineering, because it's not truly engineering, but like all these projects that have that element, and I think for the slope, that's basically limited approach, and you would want a limited approach because, you know, Jeff, in the meantime, 'cause I know we haven't had a chance to talk, I was reviewing some of these documents, what they use for bioengineering, and it's interesting, you know, the problems with this roadway are top down, meaning that the flow is coming from higher elevations and shooting down, right? When
Correct.
you read a lot of these bioengineering articles, which don't get me wrong, they were great, and I'm gonna still try to implement another one here for this project. They're all concerned about flow stream bank erosion. So it's a totally different sort of approach. So when they you know, they'll take root wads from trees and just like jam them in backwards, and you want the flow to hit the root wads to slow down, right? It slows down, you know, the velocity of the stream. It allows deposition. You want that deposition. So maybe it can even, you know, accrete and build up to a point where it'll establish vegetation, but all that ongoing, you know, high-low iterative drop process over time creates its own sort of natural approach to stabilizing banks and reducing erosion, because as we know, just dropping the hard stuff, it may work in the spot, it may not, but it definitely makes things worse downstream as it just bounces on the way. So the other item that we discussed that I think is fairly simple and I think, you know, could work here is at the toe of the slope, you know, basically, you know, in the wetland, in the stream, you could install those core logs and do live plant staking. Willow is a popular one. It's just like, you know, how you kill a vampire, this little mini thing, and you just jam them in, and, you know, there'd be enough moisture down there, and the core log would serve as the substrate, you know, basically to let the rooting start to happen, and that'll degrade over time. But by then, willows grow pretty quick, and, you know, so you'd have like this nice effect of, you know, the slope, easy to maintain, you know, herbs, don't worry about dislodging rock with woody roots and whatnot, you know, to the Gabion mattress. But I think, you know, in the stream bank itself, there's definitely a way to improve, you know, what would be just sort of the hard bottom, you know, when it gets to the stream, you know. I'm not, again, not worried that this intermittent stream is, you know, what the cause is from the road stability and engineering perspective, but, you know, we know this is a town project. If it was a private applicant, you know, we all kind of discussed internally here that we just, you know, you have to still put on that, you know, good face
right
of
thing.
like, yeah, look, it's an
Yeah, I
11, you can't just.
Would that
so-
change the elevation that the outfall would go at if you do something like that?
I probably wouldn't look to necessarily mess with the outfall location per se. I was thinking more just sort of the run of the bank. I would look to try to minimize anything there, just not to impede that sort of, you know, discharge. Because as Jeff mentioned, you know, if that is controlled as such, the hope is that the velocity isn't gonna end up scouring its own design, right? If I,
Are you talking the
Correctly.
scour from the stream? Or you're talking about scour from the?
I'm talking when you get to sort of like that outflow portion, I wouldn't worry about like enveloping or wrapping that in core log, so to speak. In other words, I would want that to be
You're talking, Dennis, you're
right
talking this
there,
area.
exactly. I would want
Okay.
that relatively open, but to the remaining length that, you know, is just touching slope embankment, I think there's, you know, potential for improvement there. That's all.
No, I don't know if you're familiar with this whole project, Dennis, but there is a concept that we developed to do a treatment, basically do a overflow, a low flow, 24-inch, 24-hour storm directed into a system out in this area, and that was just beyond the scope of the project and because I believe the town is using some FEMA money for this repair work.
Mm-hmm.
There is a concept out there, and that's one of the reasons for this manhole here. We set these pipes up such that we can tap into this manhole and divert the first inch rain out in this direction and use a series of basins at this area, then ultimately discharge down here for the first inch. There is a concept out there. So there's a long-term plan to do some of this bioengineering, but that's really basically that out in that area is beyond the scope of this project and the funds.
Right, and I was gonna say, and that's like more water quality directed. I was
Yes,
just
there's
looking
water,
at.
water quality, yes.
Yeah, I was just looking at the habitat right there where we're in the wetland and obviously making a direct impact. And that was our sort of, in discussing it with Bob, I said, look, I'm not trying to change, anything that's going to affect or impact the engineering. But if I can get more into the icing on the cake category and just make it look, not just make it look good, but function. And function for me, I'm talking like
Yeah.
wetlands ecological function, not function
Yeah,
as the
down in this
design.
area, I don't see a problem down in this area.
Okay, well, and
Honestly,
that would be great.
I
then it
think,
would-
I think there might
could
be some
continue.
opportunity, I think there might be some opportunities over here. But in this area along here, this water course is pretty tight right here.
Mhm.
Anything here, you're gonna restrict the flow and either you're gonna create erosion on the inside of the curve. Or it's just gonna be
Well, I
a
mean, if it's
free trap.
possibly, then that's something we should look at, but I'm talking logs and plants. I don't know if that would necessarily create.
Not so
Uh,
concerned, I'm familiar with the root wad scenario because I've used them before. where you
Yeah,
jam-
I'm not looking at root wad. I'm not,
Okay.
that's too much. I agree, yeah.
I mean, I told Bob this before, I said, short of playing around with this slope, because he started saying about planting trees in the slope. I'm like, we can plant trees,
No,
but
I wouldn't,
they're not gonna
yeah.
survive.
I would not look to do trees there either. I'm just, literally at the toe of the slope, there's opportunity to, how best can you try to quote unquote plant something, right? So you can't just drop a plant in and then, hope that it's not a high flow event, you know what I mean? So that's why I was saying the logs and the stakes, it kind of serves as, a stabilization and a planting substrate, to sort of achieve that goal without looking to just sort of impact that design. It's just an opportunity to plant, that's all.
Oh, we're honestly, whatever you guys want. I mean,
Something to look at.
Did the town hear from any of the neighbors notified?
No, that's a good point. I sent those notifications out weeks
all the
ago.
notices are out. I have not seen
Yeah,
any. There was some conversation during the design phase with this property up on this hillside. They were more concerned with the swale because there's an existing retaining wall out here. They were worried about that, but we're not touching that, so I don't think that's an issue at this point. But that's the
Right,
only
and-
property owners that we've heard from.
and the only correction, in this part of town, it's a 150-foot buffer, which doesn't change
It doesn't change.
materially anything with respect to the project. It's just a note on the drawing, that's all.
Do we identified the 150 foot buffer on here? Oh, we do, don't we? That's supposed
You
to
have
be
100.
200, 150.
It's in the environmental protection overlay district, so that's why it's 150.
Okay, we can move that line over. That's pretty easy. Doesn't change anything
It
material.
doesn't, yeah, I was gonna say, if that represents 100, it does nothing other than just to depict where it is in the town relative to our wetland code, that's it.
Okay, easy enough. Any other questions? Dennis, do you want to work with me to come up with a planting here that's acceptable to you in the town?
Yeah, kind of what I illustrated, I'm trying to keep it simple and keep it green, so, even if we needed to use the smallest core logs, so that we don't necessarily worry about creating the, closing artery effect in that
Yep.
spot, and, the willows are the most popular, we just drop stakes in and we just figure out what a spacing would be that would make sense, and that's it. And you're already gonna see. the
Can I ask a blunt,
bank-
can I ask a blunt question?
Of course.
Would the commission be okay with approving this thing that with Dennis's input on planting this area that he's talking about?
Yeah,
Yes. Just one other curiosity question. Is the work being done from the street with a long reach machine to get down
Yeah.
to the top?
Well, we can't, honestly, that's the concept and how we came up with this thing. So we did check out, we work with contractors a lot in reference to long reach machines. We typically don't dictate how they're gonna do it, but it doesn't make any sense because he's not gonna be allowed to track down into the stream to do this work, so it'll be.
Yeah.
He may decide to bench it in so he can use a smaller machine versus something with a 60 or 70 foot reach. That's a pretty big machine,
Yeah,
but it'll definitely.
to try to
the
keep
machine will
a
be
lane
sitting
open.
in this area.
yeah.
Mm.
Just when you set the specs out for that, it just, whatever they do to try to keep it up high, not,
Right. I know, understood.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you have all the silly things with spill kits and fueling requirements
Yep.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, it's funny because that's why, I mean, obviously, from the submission, you could see where Tectonic ended and the thickness of New York State DOT specifications began.
Right.
And I said, just so that you
Yeah,
at least would see that, because it's not just these, right, to Jeff's point, it's not just these 5 pages, or whatever.
Yeah, I'm sure there's-
yeah, we referenced the entire New York State DOT specification, which covers
Right.
everything under the sun.
Glad you didn't print that.
All right, does anyone else have any questions? No?
Yeah, good
All
luck.
right, I'll entertain a motion to approve, subject to Dennis working through the final planting
Motion-
details.
Motion to approve pending Dennis's review of the wetland planting.
The second,
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries.
Perfect.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your
Great, thank
time.
you, Jeff.
Thank you,
Good
Jeff.
luck.
Let's see, how do
All right,
Yeah, we're okay.
so that's everything on the agenda. Do we have anything else, Dennis?
No, obviously going back to our first application, they're obviously in, a rush to, I guess, get approval because, they're looking at, I think shovels in the ground over the summer. But obviously, Michael Campbell, who didn't speak much, he's the engineer of record, and I guess part of the reasons why that they need to propose rain gardens is, there's a lot of moisture on that property, so subsurface is not gonna, achieve.
It just seems strange that because there's pushback, let's find another engineer to change the wetland.
Well,
I don't even,
It seems,
I, again, as I said, I'm not saying anything new in their absence. It was the first time that I had heard that argument.
a reclassification.
And that, yeah, and based on,
and how does that help them, the reclassification of that line?
I think the significance is that they would be able to put a basin to the rear of the property, not in wetlands if that line gets closer to the pond.
I see.
But it doesn't change the fact that I think the entirety of the project looks like that it's gonna be within the buffer, no matter how
Absolutely.
you swing that, yes.
So it's just the placement of the basin?
Yes, because I believe the applicant was not in favor of having 2 basins side by side on the side of the property. Because I
Takes
guess
up a big area.
it's utilized by the family, et cetera, and if that's gonna be 2 basins, I could see that, or 2 rain gardens, I could see that being a problem, so.
so is
So
that garage really a non-starter on this one? Is that screw everything up?
all I'm saying is that it was never considered before, and I know that, this board, obviously, I know it's not a pool.
How high are the ceilings in the garage? 'Cause we could just put a lift in. if we wanted
It does reduce the footprint.
I mean, there's been very little avoidance.
Right, and I
That's
always,
an opportunity for that to happen.
right, and it's, what is, as John Rosenblum would tell people that we're trying to advance pools, they're like, well, that's an amenity. I didn't know what a third garage was gonna be and how that discussion was gonna go, but it was never discussed because it wasn't on the table and now it is, so that's why
It's
I
not
wanted them to
It's
get
not
it.
gonna add any major value to the house having third garage. It's not.
You would know that better than me, I mean, I have no
Right, like
comment.
I could see it on the, the appraisal form, plus 5,000, plus 10,000, right?
It's not
It's,
it's not
Yeah.
people are not gonna like, oh, I'm not buying this house because it doesn't have 3-car garage. I'm not buying this house because it's next to a pond.
Right.
Like the garage isn't gonna, if they really want, you could if the ceilings are high enough in the garage already, you can put a lift in. Probably cost you less than doing another bay.
So it was just a difficult, somebody in speaking after the call with regards to, is it a wetland, is it not a wetland? Somebody, building inspector was like, so, I have a pond and I'm near a DEC wetland, so if I got a permit to dredge that pond, I said yes, and I put the spoils somewhere, at a non-wetland site, does that automatically make it wetlands because those soils are hydric? I said, absolutely not. I said, you put it in an upland location, the hydrology around those would be different, the vegetation would be different. I said, here, again, first flush, I'm like, you're talking about a spot that's right next to the pond and is, when you walk on it, is a little damp and, it's right there. So how did it lose its hydric properties, but it didn't lose its hydric, again, this
Right.
is open for
It's an interesting
interpretation.
question. It is an
Yeah.
interesting question.
Yeah, and again, if he's experienced this and has examples of that, that's why I made the comment. I said, I'd like to see where else this was advanced and what agencies agreed to it, et cetera, Because I said to him today, you're telling me hypothetically, I could fill out a wetland data form doing my delineation, and I'm checking some things on that form under the category of hydric soils that would lead to a hydric soil determination. It's not going to talk about, well, these features appeared 35 years ago and, they haven't been increased or their intensity has been reduced in terms of the color or how they appear, or I've never engaged at that level, and I'm not sure any delineator really has. You're just, like looking at
It's
that.
more like it is or it isn't.
Correct. So that's why I'm curious where this
It
goes.
is, it was,
This is
therefore
where
it
goes.
isn't anymore.
Right. So it could be right. It's just new to me and I wasn't ready to commit to anything, hearing it for the first time on a Zoom call.
Yeah.
So that was all.
So can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn the meeting?
Second?
I'll second that one.
Okay, very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, guys.